Hi, I'm Corey.
I'm Bill.
And together we host the In Focus podcast. Today, we're joined by photographer, fellow podcaster, Travis McQueen. Travis, welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, thank you all for having me. You guys are the real deal. I'm just kind of like the Bush League over here, man.
You're giving me personally too much credit, for sure.
Oh, man. I mean, you're in here with all of your podcasting equipment, all these fancy cords. I mean, I don't know, dude. I feel inferior right now.
Corey's the Renaissance man. He just has all this gear.
I'm just here. I'm just here to create.
I like it. That's all I'm here for, too.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well, Travis, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you.
I know you spend a lot of time behind the camera, stills camera, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. How'd you get into that?
Well, it's actually an interesting story. One of me being a little frugal. So my wife is an influencer. And when I say influencer, I mean like she's like a legit influencer, not like she's not like the ones that goes on Instagram, has like 200 followers and calls herself an influencer. Right. She's got a following. And whenever she started this, I was like, oh man, this is going to be interesting. Like, you know, what does all it take? And she's, I need to take product shots for these brands. You know, brands are starting to come to her and stuff. And she come to me, she was like, hey, I need a photographer. And I was like, well, how much are they? She's like, well, the one I've been looking at's like $1,000 for like a shoot. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, if you can get everything out, like, if you're making that money back,
right,
like it's fine. She's like, no, like I would need that like every week. And I was like, no, we're not doing, we're not doing $4,000 a month. Like that's nowhere near going to what's happening here. So we decided to actually just go ahead and get a camera, and then I would start doing the photos myself. So, just kind of been doing that. Didn't really enjoy it. Hated everything about it. But then whenever we started traveling, I did more like landscape stuff. I was like, okay, so this is really cool. I can stop a moment in time. I can take a picture of something I want to remember or something I wanted to do. And it just kind of developed from there. So then flash forward a couple years, get out of the Army, realize that, hey, I should probably find something to do. I don't know what. And I was like, well, let me just be a photographer. So since then, man, since 2018, this has been my bread and butter, my livelihood, everything. And I love it, man.
Yeah. And I know on your website, I've seen some really, really impressive landscape photography, I feel like.
Well, thank you.
Maybe it was on your Instagram. I don't remember. But do you sell prints of that, or is that more just kind of passion project stuff?
It's more passion project stuff. The more I've been in photography, what I will say is to be a successful landscape photographer, you have to have a following. You got to have a name. And really, it comes down to people knowing you. And that's how you actually sell your prints, is once you have that following. Because right now, like, I'm not no famous Sony artisan or anything like that. So it's like nobody's really asking for a Travis McQueen print. Like that's not what they're wanting. So you have to have that kind of following and that kind of consistency and be at that kind of level to sell prints. So everything landscape at my level is just passion project. Yeah.
I feel like you definitely have a name though you could capitalize. I don't know if there's any relation at all.
I think there is a little bit.
Yeah.
We had a lady look into my family history, and then she said there was a link to Steve McQueen. I assume that's what we were talking about, not Lightning. No relation to Lightning.
Lightning.
He's totally different.
Yeah.
Different side of the family. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day I can cash in on this name, but for right now, nobody's looking.
Nice.
Is that something you want to reach eventually? As like known for your landscaping or your landscaping?
Your landscape
like it's
photography.
Gardening. Yeah, your landscape photography.
I did do 1 year of landscaping. Worst summer of my life, I think. It was terrible. No, I honestly kind of look back in multiple different directions and avenues because I think photography is great. It's a very big part of my life at this point. But I'm always trying to look for better ways to kind of I guess, tell a story. So like landscapes are really great about telling stories. You can show the evolution of a place in a certain time. So it's like if you go to Canada, the same exact place at the, in 4 different seasons, you're going to get a different kind of photo. It's the same spot, but you're capturing that evolution. So over time, you can really tell a story. Even if you take portraits of people, if you can follow the same person over time, you're really showing the passion, showing how they're aging, showing how their styles change and moods change. Photography in the 80s is totally different than 2020, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like two different things. So you're really capturing a story throughout time, but that's what kind of gets me with photography is you really have to be following that subject, following that something to tell that story. I don't think, I don't know. I just see my career from photography. I really want to get into more video and cinematography and get on the level of you guys, because that's the more like the immediate stories, like what's happening now, and actually developing a more cohesive storyline, a more cohesive unit, and you're able to visually show something to somebody. And if you're good enough writer and good enough at editing and sound design and all that, you can make them feel it. Photography, you can do a little bit of that, but there's so many other things that video and cinematography gives you, like the sound design and just the way things are written. I mean, it just kind of hits you, and that's kind of where I see my passions leaning toward now.
Yeah. It's that all-encompassing aspect of video. And I think that's why I like it a lot too, is just like there is so many elements you can explore, like sound design and story and visuals and all that sort of performance even.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps that medium rich, at least for me, because it's just like there's something new and creative to get out of it all the time. It's not just a one-shot deal.
Well, see, I kind of think still photography is 2D and video is 3D. It's or even 4D in some aspects. It's just a totally different experience. It's like I said, all encompassing. I mean, it gives you an experience. Like if you look at Instagram or whatever kind of Google search engine, you look at photos, it's like, okay, these are great photos, and you're probably just going to keep on swiping, looking for the next one. But if you get like a really good video or something really captivating, it's like, whoa, like it grips you. Some photographs do it 100%, but I just think that you're going to have a better weight, or you're going to have a better ratio of getting that attention in video than photos.
And people are going to share it.
Yeah, 100%.
I get video shares much more than I get, still shares.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, it's all the elements coming together sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it's probably kind of an unintended consequence of the two different mediums too. Photography is very much, you're capturing that very specific moment in time.
Yeah.
Oftentimes like a fraction of a moment, like a thousandth of a second, depending on the moment. Whereas with video, like it's intended to capture and maintain your attention for a longer period of time. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. But again, to your point, there are definitely still photographers and photos that captivate and like pull you in, but still like it is just that single moment in time versus whatever the narrative story is or whatever the performative story is, whatever, like there's so much more to it then.
Yeah. I can almost kind of say too, like photography is you see the moment, videography, you live the moment.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's deep.
Hey,
very deep.
I'm a deep person. I'm a deep person from the hills of Kentucky. All right.
Nice. Nice.
And I mean, like photography birthed cinema. Quite honestly, I mean that's where it
really
began. Or you want to go back to Muybridge and the experiments he used to do with photography to show motion, like just a horse moving. I mean that's photography is the grandfather to or the father to cinema ultimately. So we have that to thank for video.
Yeah, I mean. It's an evolution, right? I mean, all of it's a stepping stone. So, I mean, I'm definitely not sitting here saying that photography is bad because it's how I make my living and a big passion of mine. Mm-hmm. It's just that I think as time progresses, it's 2021. I think camera phones have gotten so good that people have kind of took advantage of photography. Like they don't really see the big need to pay big money for certain things because they can just go to those locations, pull out their iPhone and snap a couple photos, right?
Yeah.
The new iPhones has 3 lenses, the wide, the telephoto, and the regular. So it's like they got the fake bokeh stuff now. So it's like people kind of get these things, and I think that it's kind of undervalued or given people this, where they go, oh, well, I can always take a photo. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think just with the time, I think you're seeing, at least from my perspective, I've seen more photographers now. They're trying to get into the video cinematography world because they think that, hey, this is the next medium for us to be able to make a living, but also tell a more compelling story that's interesting to people. Because again, with all the camera phones and all the technology, I just think most people are just taking it for granted, I guess.
Yeah.
I think with that context though, like I would love to hear like how you have found a way to make still photography your living and how you've worked your way into that work. Like what type of photography do you currently or traditionally work in from a paid perspective?
So the biggest part of my paid stuff has really been kind of doing the stuff for like bloggers, influencers, stuff like that, just kind of doing some portraits for them. Then just brands, a lot of brands, they're going to need some sort of thing. So I did one with a Nashville company here. I'm going to rep them just because. Yeah. I forgot their name though, just off the top of my head.
Ranger Station?
Yeah, that's it. Good job. Thank you. I did some stuff with Ranger Station not too long ago, so that was really cool to do. And then after that, since moving to downtown Nashville and meeting up with you, actually, it seems like I've been kind of thrown into this like country music circle.
Nice.
And I'm not even like country music, man. It's always awkward. They're always like talking about country people.
Welcome to Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been thrown into this now. So there's a few people wanting me to go out on the road with them this summer, take some concert photos of them. So I'm cool. I think it's awesome. Yeah. I'm happy for that experience, but it's weird, man. It's weird going from landscape photography to taking photos of candles to going on tour with some guy who's trying to be a country artist. It's like, I don't know, man.
That is the Nashville experience for those of us who work with cameras.
Continual transformation.
Yeah, and that's way for music videos too. It's like, who is this artist? And I don't think I like this song, but I want the gig. Please give me a paycheck. I'll show up and do a great job for you.
Yeah.
But you definitely like every artist you've worked with, right?
Yes. I've worked with many artists at this point. You would never be able to narrow it down.
That's true. That's true.
I can say of the very small circle of artists that I've dealt with so far, they've all been pretty good. Like I think only one person had ever said anything or kind of come across a weird way, but I just think most people feel some type of way because communication, right? Mm-hmm. I think as time has went on, I think a lot of social norms, people have kind of forgotten how to communicate face to face in a digital world. Yeah. But once you kind of get through that barrier and I think people, it was fine. At the end of the day, like every person I've ever worked with has been good. And even the one that I said that kind of been a little rocky, it was just a communication issue. And once we got that figured out, it was solid.
That's cool.
Yeah. Have you any recent work that you've been a part of? Any projects?
Well, I would say in the past year, the best project I've been a part was yours.
That was not the one I had in mind. But please go on.
But continue.
The Scott Stevens project, or the Scott Stevens music video.
Oh yeah,
that one. That thing was so cool. So I'm glad that you asked me to come on there and help out with lighting and stuff. That was probably my favorite one. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That or my podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll talk about your podcast in a minute. But how you and I first met? I think we met at an Explorer Nashville. Yeah, those guys are cool.
Yeah.
I love.
Oh, is that that's the photography?
Well, they do all kinds of things. They do. They have the Nashville Daily Podcast.
That's right. Yeah, I met what's his name?
Stuart Aaron, one of those two.
The guy with the beard.
Yeah, Stuart.
Yeah, I met him at the when we tried to get the Saharan dust cloud, and it didn't quite.
Oh yeah.
Didn't quite pan out.
The sunset was super boring.
It was a boring sunset.
Big letdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so we met at one of those events. And like many people, you're like, hey, I would love, if you ever got any gigs, I'll come hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people, like, you know, don't really value that in a way. Like, if you want to try something, like, get out there. I'm not a social butterfly, but I'll get out there and I'll try it, you know, and kind of say, hey, whatever you got, let me just tag along. You know, I'll learn, I'll do whatever I got to do.
Hopefully this doesn't open me up to just like, listen, don't flood my DMs. Like as a stranger, if we've never met,
don't at me
with your, hey, I'll come work for free.
Adam, he'll do it.
But I think everyone I've ever met and like had a face-to-face interaction with, whether it's at the Explore meets or on different sets or through rentals or whatever, anytime somebody says, hey, if you ever have anything going on, I want to learn, I want to like come experience, just let me know. I'll come do whatever. I take almost everyone up on that offer for two reasons. One, it's free labor.
Exactly. Yeah. Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, like,
exactly.
I'm not going to rely on you on the day, but if you're there, like, we'll have things for you to do.
Yeah.
But secondly, like, I never had that experience or that opportunity to like just insert myself into things as I was getting into photography and cinematography.
Likewise.
So I feel like giving other people that opportunity is, you know, I could pay it forward 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I think with that too, I think it's a part of building a community and again, building that network as well. So you're getting twofold. Like, not only are you going to have somebody who you've brought on, you've taught them, they know your mannerisms. So then whenever you do have a job and they need some help, it's like, you know, you're going to work well with this person.
Right.
Then you build that network with that person, right? You two are really good. So maybe one day he'll go off and meet somebody big or have a big project. And he's like, hey, look, I can't do this by myself, but I know somebody who could help out. So then you just build that. And I think it kind of builds a healthy creative community in that aspect. And that's something that, you know, maybe not so much in Nashville. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I feel like a healthy creative community is a rare thing. And it's, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just from my experience, it just hasn't really seemed very healthy. It's been very competitive. And not a lot of networking. I think most people have that I'm going to do it all on my own kind of standoff, you know, don't want to share locations or tips and secrets. They just kind of want to, you know, hold all the information to themselves. But
yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of that like around town. There are also like, I know that there are pockets of like, I don't know if you would call them like micro communities or whatever it is, but there
like
are
the Explorer.
Right. Like there are groups that I know there are DPs that they rely on, like this small network of individuals that they work with all the time. But to your point, that's not large to the point where they're like everybody's getting together, like multiple agencies or like multiple DPs.
Well,
it's kind of.
I've been a part of the film community in Nashville since 05, 06, and I've seen it change a lot. It used to be more of a tighter knit family dynamic. There was maybe 2 or 3 bubbles, you know, that all kind of worked together, like you were saying. And then as time went on, those bubbles would move together and overlap, and we all started to know each other. And Zach Adams used to host mixers all the time, and it would just be filmmakers all over town coming together, networking, chatting about stuff. As time has gone on and as Nashville has grown and more people have come here and more people are doing video, there's all sorts of pockets of people now.
Yeah.
And it's
just a factor of growth at that point.
Yeah,
like once you have a big city, it's hard to have that one small kind of family
Yeah.
kind of thing. So it does turn into like the micro satellites.
And so we're like the old guys now that have been here like before the growth, you know. We're just kind of like, let me tell you about the Nashville experience because we've been here forever, you know.
The other thing that's interesting is how many filmmakers or creatives from outside of Nashville travel to Nashville for work. Like I can't tell you how many renters I've met through ShareGrid who they're flying in from LA for the weekend. They need some gear. They're here for agency work, and then like they're gone like Sunday night, Monday morning. It's interesting that there are so many people locally, not that those directors or DPs aren't qualified. They might even be more qualified, but to see so many people from outside the community coming in to do work is just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I don't want to get into the political stuff, but there was a bill that the Tennessee legislature just passed that's going to hopefully bring more of that work to the state. It's something that needed to pass for a long time, so we may be seeing more of that, and more people moving here, and more people doing film and video work, more bigger, larger projects coming to town.
Yeah, that's good.
Sign me up. Whatever you got, you sign me up. If you know anything, you let me know. All right.
Oh yes.
Now, Travis, I know we met for coffee maybe a month or so ago.
Yep.
And just talking through like your desire to get into video to eventually move away from stills. I know you expressed a lot of interest around some version of like documentary work, whether it's like short form documentary or.
Yeah. So I'm a weird person and subscribe to the idea that everybody has a story. And I think one of the most beautiful and wonderful things about humanity and being a human being is everybody to the right and to the left. So you two right now have your two stories, some good, some bad, but the story of you. So I think documentary work is really beautiful in that if you can find a story and tell it to other people. You know, in a world where people just constantly hate each other, you know, over every little thing, if Coke's better, Pepsi's better, and if you all think Coke is terrible, all right, Pepsi's way better, so if you guys are Coke drinkers, get out of here.
I'm ginger ale all the way.
Ginger ale. But we're so divided. So I think documentary work can really kind of help bridge that gap. Like, how about you actually learn about why this person feels what they feel, learn about what they've went through throughout time, learn what it's like to be a janitor. I mean, you know, I always see, you know, big time movies that are awesome and I love them. I see these big documentary works from Nat Geo and they're doing all these great things, but it's like, what about the person to your left and to your right? Like, what's their life like? Like, how can you relate to them? 9 times out of 10, they're probably lost and broken just like you and everybody else. Mm-hmm. So if you can learn something from them, learn what it's like to be a janitor, learn what it's like to be a bus driver for Metro Nashville or a police officer or something like that, you know, it helps bring people together and give them that common ground. Like, hey, man, you know, like, you know, I have a son that does bad in school too. I don't know. You find something to kind of like collaborate on. So that's why I love documentary pieces. It's just that humanity, telling those stories, getting to know people at a more intimate level, and education, man. Like education. It's the most important thing to me. So if I can do something in a manner to educate people on something, I'm happy.
Yeah, I feel like you just kind of pitched an idea for a really good like web series. Like I think about like the old Micro Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
Like similarly, you could tell that same story of all those people in like just segmented bits. Can I option this?
This is the pitch right now.
I will say one of the biggest things that I've always thought would be really, really cool. And I don't know if it would ever happen. Maybe if I was like super rich or something. I always thought it'd be really cool to get to a big kind of company like Sony Music or some, you know, Fortune 500 company and literally like choose random people, you know, the janitor, if they got like a lunch line or like people who in the cafeteria, like get some of them, talk to mid-level execs, sales reps, talk to the CEO themselves, and just kind of like do a little short series about each of their lives and then kind of how they all really tie in together. And maybe, you know, we can learn that the janitor or the lunch lady, whoever else, is probably the exact same person as the CEO, just dressed a little bit different and maybe have a higher level of education, but where are those similarities? So that's always something I thought was, maybe I'm crazy, but I always thought that'd be kind of pretty cool to do or kind of an interesting story to tell.
Yeah. That's the pitch.
That is the pitch.
That's the pitch.
If anyone's interested, we'll leave Travis's contact info in the show notes.
There you go.
Drop a line.
Nice.
Yeah.
At him.
Yeah. Just you know, I'll have to have help. So Corey, hope you guys are on, and Bill, you know, you guys will help me, right?
Of course.
Yeah. I think I told you, like, whatever you need, like, I'm there.
There we go. There we go. So going back to the interesting story, though, or the interesting things, maybe this is what you was kind of hitting at. So last night I went to an event and I actually met some famous people. I didn't belong there, but I met a John Rich. What's the money dude? Dave Ramsey, and the meatball or whatever. What's his name?
The meatball guy. Meatloaf?
Meatloaf.
The
yes.
meatball guy?
Yeah. The
Can we just call him Meatball? I'm into that.
So look, so I will, like, I can name drop a lot of like Sony artisans, like random people, but it's like, that dude, for some reason, I guess he was really big and had a really big hit back in the day. And
Meatloaf, yes, he was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
yeah, see, from my voice right now, everybody's like, oh my God, this dude's an idiot. Like, you don't know who Meatloaf is? Look, I was raised eating meatloaf. I don't want anything to do with that. Songs, anything. Yeah. Meatloaf's terrible.
All right, so you were at this event. So were you hired as a photographer for the event? So
I was not hired for this one. This was one that I was trying to get onto. I was actually trying to get John Rich on a podcast.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that didn't work out. The PR person shut me down real fast. Dealing with that was pretty cool. But I decided to hang out there, take some photos because I'm a photographer. You never know what's going to kind of come about. But it was a very interesting event for me. It's one that look, again, I'm not a country guy, so when somebody's talking about riding cowboys, like, I'm already kind of out. Like, I'm like, hey.
But he's saving horses.
Dude, I don't even like horses. I'm from Kentucky, dude. Like, it is what it is. So I don't care about the horses or the cowboys he rode. I'm just kind of on my own over here, I guess. But it was fun, man. I mean, kind of seeing famous people, like, sit around, smoke cigars while I take pictures of them. I mean, I guess it was kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, but you were there, like, you had media credentials for the night, like, you were good.
Yeah. It's weird, man. I've never had my name, like, on the list. And honest to God, like, whenever I just kind of lived in little old Laurel County, Kentucky, like, I never thought that one day I'd move it to Nashville. And dang sure never thought that I'd be invited to a John Rich private party and have my name on a list. Like,
you made it.
Yeah.
I made it, bro. I don't know where I made it, but I made it somewhere.
I'm somewhere.
In Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
He's got a show too. I forget what the name of it is. I don't even want to rep it or anything, but he's got a show, and I was like, oh, hey, maybe I'll talk to his PR person who's also the producer of the show. I was like, hey, if you ever need some photography, let me know. She's like, no, I'm good. I got somebody. After she already let me down on the podcasting, I was like, man, this lady's a negative Nancy. She's a Debbie Downer over here.
Props to you for shooting your shot. Like, you got to try.
Hey, man, I'm always the person that I will shotgun blast you at stuff. One day, something will stick.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is nothing at all. I mean, that's really...
Wow.
Hey, man, the worst thing people can say is no, right? She did. She did it very quickly.
Twice. Sounds like she did it twice.
She didn't hold you in suspense, at least.
No,
so you
man.
Get anxious about it.
I think it's funny, and that's something that kind of speaks to, like, I think the character of people and just kind of how society is just kind of unfolded. I think, back in the day, talking like 80s, 90s, I think most people were pretty, like, we were more social, that the big tech stuff hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
So really, like, when people said no, it was like, okay, like, no. Mm-hmm. Flash forward to 2020, 2021, I think where society is kind of hiccuped was we've gotten so social, we've gotten so used to really not wanting to disappoint anybody. We kind of sugarcoat things probably more often. We're always trying to find, like, the softer kind of, like, what way to say no or yes or something. So it's a league of its own. And then whenever you're used to that and somebody just says no, it's like, whoa, like, what is this?
That's almost like the East Coast, West Coast rejection. Because I know up in New York, they're still big on the no.
Oh, really?
Like, oh yeah. And LA, it's what you were talking about. It's the gentle. Well, it's not quite. It's not what we're looking for right now. The timing isn't great, so maybe some other time. But thank you so much.
Stringing you along.
And then New York is just like no. and then they walk away. And it's still like that. I there's a term for it. I forget what it is, but it's definitely a New York, LA difference in the way they reject. And it's very common. It's common enough it has a term. I just can't think of it right now.
Interesting.
I appreciate like the hard no. Like in time, I don't appreciate it, but like whenever I walk away, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I know though. Like I would rather somebody tell me straight no than to kind of string you along, make you think, oh, well, if you keep pitching this or keep doing this, eventually something will change. It's like, nah, bro, I'm not interested. Cool. I'll go to somebody else, you know?
Thanks. Thanks for not wasting my time.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for
respect
getting back to me at all. It's better than ghosting, I guess.
Dude, I've been ghosted. So funny story. Somebody reached out to me for a music video after seeing some of the work with the Scott Stevens thing. And I was like, all right, Corey, you know, what do I do here? Because, you know, I don't have the gear. I don't really have a lot of the skill set. So Corey did this awesome thing. He said, first of all, you ask what their budget is. And I was like, okay, all right, here we go. Because I was like, all right, we'll try it. As soon as I said that, ghosted.
Yes.
Ghosted. 100%.
I don't have enough fingers to count how many times I've been ghosted by would-be clients after asking the budget question.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so common. And those are the people you don't want to work with anyway, ultimately.
I think like the text I sent you, it was probably one of the longest texts I've sent in a while, but like I wanted to try to set you up for success to either like get your foot in the door with this guy or know immediately like it's not going to happen. So like, I think what I told him was first ask him what his budget is and then ask him if he already has a vision or an idea of like what you would want the video to look like. And then like we can figure out here's what you can and cannot do based on your budget. Yeah. And you can present that to him as if this is what you want, here's what it's actually going to look like with your budget.
We didn't even get that far, bro.
The budget is essentially the entryway into the conversation.
Yeah.
And if they don't have one, you don't get into the conversation. Yeah. Just like they'll go away. You scare them off half the time.
Yeah. So this is actually interesting. And this is something I'd actually like to ask you guys is as somebody kind of coming into these kind of creative worlds of cinematography and stuff like that, how much do you do for free? Because coming from photography and kind of when I started out, for the longest time, everything I've done was free work. I mean, up to really, even in 2019, 2020, today I still do a ton of free work. But in your guys' realm, there's a lot more work than just stills, you know? So like at what point do you guys really kind of say, all right, I need to stop this free work and I need to start trying to figure out, you know, some kind of compensation?
For me, it was, I had no resume. I had no demo reel when I was first starting out. So I needed to do the free stuff just to get stuff.
Yeah.
And once I think I networked enough and got a substantial demo reel to put together and show to people, that's when I started to put a price tag on you know, my work at that point. And even now, I mean, if the right opportunity comes my way where the opportunity is almost bigger than the monetary, I will still occasionally take a freebie. Like the Billy Bob Thornton shoot that I was on, that was offered to me as a freebie, and I was like, are you kidding me? I would love to have this man's face on my demo reel. That's the only payment I need. Yeah. And so that was of course a freebie, but it's like that's what it is for me. And I know a lot of people work in different ways. Some people, it's just like, no, if you're not paying me, I'm out. I don't care if it's working with Spielberg. If it's free, I'm out. Yeah. Like, I'm not that person. You know, I ask the budget question first. If it's something that interests me creatively, I'll sometimes loosen up a little bit on the budget talk. But you know, everybody's got their own way of doing it.
Yeah. And I feel like I would love to talk about that Billy Bob Thornton example for a second, because I feel like that could draw some scrutiny. Like, wouldn't someone like Billy Bob Thornton be on a project with a budget anyways?
You would think so.
Interesting.
That's a question for Zach. I don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah. So my assumption would be there was probably a budget, and this is me just, Zach's not here, so we can assume all that we want. There was a budget. Zach had done everything he could within that budget, but to like take the project over the top, like, let me call in a favor. Like, I know somebody that may be able to help out.
I think that is the case because we did have some pretty great locations, and we were shuttled to the location in a tour bus, the entire crew. So there was we ate for free. There was some perks,
Right.
that cost money. How are you going to rent this space we're shooting in? I don't know. I never thought about it. Yeah. So, I think you're right about that. Yeah. I just know I was asked if I wanted to shoot it, and I said yes.
Absolutely.
I don't know. If anybody ever had that asked of them and they said, "No, I'm not getting paid," I'd be like, "Dude, you're crazy." Like,
I know, right?
I think, but that's to your point. Like, everybody is at a different stage where, like, we know individuals that are like full-time filmmakers or full-time ACs or whatever that is, where that's their job. Mm-hmm. They're not interested in like doing anything for free.
Yeah.
Like, and then when they're not working, being paid, like, they're not thinking about filmmaking. They're not thinking about all the different aspects because it is just a job at that point for them.
They're not thinking about the face in their demo reel
right.
of an Academy Award-winning actor.
Yeah.
I think if somebody's like actively like busy, it makes sense that they say, "Oh, hey, I actually got something else going on, or I got a project I'm working on." I can see that. But if you're just sitting at home, like eating Doritos on the couch, watching TV,
drinking LA,
drinking LA, the good old Kentucky Gold, dude, you should be hanging out with Billy Bob. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
for sure. Yeah, my approach is probably pretty similar. Like, I'm not full time in the creative space at all, so I have maybe the luxury to say like yes or no to paid and unpaid projects.
I'll preface that too with what I said, because you and I both have full-time gigs, so we do have that luxury to be choosy, so to speak.
But I'm probably quicker to say yes to unpaid projects than you are, just because I have the luxury to choose. And like, I think we may have had this conversation, but if it's an artist who's like new, up and coming, and like I dig their music or their vibe, or like I think they have a ton of potential and they just need help bringing their vision to life, like, sign me up. Small business that needs to get off the ground, wants some content, but doesn't really know where to start. Like, I'm happy to trade like services for like food or like services or like whatever. But I also like start every conversation with, well, my day rate's, $1,200. That's me, my camera, all my gear.
Yeah.
And like, we could go from there.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Sometimes I joke about it. I'm like, I'm not rearranging my calendar for less than $1,200 a day. So
yeah, well, and then there's the thing too of someone comes to you with a gig that is just not interesting.
Yeah.
And I have purposely highballed people just to entertain them, but to get them to leave me alone.
Have you ever highballed someone and they're like, okay?
I was getting to that.
Okay.
Yes, I did highball a client whose job I did not want 3 or 4 years ago, and they were like, absolutely. And I went, okay, well, I guess I'm doing it, but I'm going to have more money in the bank account. So,
dude, every time somebody comes to me with a wedding inquiry, I skyrocket that stuff. Luckily, it's been so high that nobody's ever wanted to do it. But it's
if you get it so high, you can just like outsource to other wedding photographers.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
That's exactly the
you're
goal.
Basically you're the wedding photographer broker,
a facilitator.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Now, Travis, you also have a podcast of your own.
I do the
Go ahead and
Bourbon
plug it.
and Boca podcast.
All right. And so what's Bourbon and Boca?
Well, me and my co-host Kim found that photography is so much easier once you get a little Boca on the bourbon. All right. It just makes life so much better. And for those of you that don't know what Boca is, it's a photography term that's basically all the blurriness in the background. So whenever bourbon makes you blurry, photography gets better. But we've really kind of bred this out of just to build a community. You know, again, from my perspective of the photo community, it's always been a super competitive, very hush-hush kind of thing. People do not share locations. They don't, share tips on how they edit it or how they kind of compose certain things or who they're working with. And so, I mean, some of that makes sense, but I think that, that's very inclusive or very isolated. I don't think that's what any part of the creative spectrum was meant to be, right? If you look at a movie, it's not just Spielberg by himself. There's literally thousands of people. So I think when photography, it should be the exact same way. You have a community of people that comes together to help each other out. So we wanted to create this in a manner that everybody can be involved. Right now, I think we're in like 15 different countries, which is weird. We are in 27, I think, of the 50 states. The biggest states we've not been able to tap into is like Montana, Idaho, Nevada, Dakotas. For some reason, both Dakotas hate us. I don't
Really?
know why. Yeah. Oh, well, there's nothing
Come
there
on,
anyway.
Dakotas.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, there's nothing there. But yeah, man, I mean, the podcast has been great. We really love doing it. We've had some amazing people on. So Sony artisan Stan Moniz. We've had him. We've had the huge TikTok famous Jenna Price. So all these people with creative backgrounds on how they've kind of got started and just kind of telling their story, man. Again, I think this kind of gets back to my little documentary thing is if you listen to the podcast, Stan has an incredible background. He is a guy who was a professional bodyboarder, okay, like back in the day.
Really?
As bodyboarding kind of shifted, a lot of big brands and agencies and stuff like that shifted all their money into surfing at some point. So all the bodyboarders, sorry for you, surfing is the thing now. Then after bodyboarding, he went all in on being a musician. So he toured with like No Doubt and like all these like great like punk bands like back in the day. He's from Hawaii and they toured the world and doing all this awesome stuff. They all come to a point where he was like, we're kind of done with this for right now. So he was like, I guess I'll do surf photography. So, I mean, it's like this guy's life is phenomenal. So hearing like his story, some of those hardships, but then how motivated he was to do each of those things and being very flexible with what life has given him. It's phenomenal. So I think that's always the big equalizer is telling those stories that other people can identify with. Like, oh, hey man, like I can be 30 eating ramen noodles, and like, don't really know what I want in life, but guess what? That was Stan's kind of story. He was in his 30s eating ramen noodles, didn't really know, and went all in with photography. So I think most people can kind of get that motivation and kind of see themselves in that. And that's kind of always what we've been wanting to do with this podcast was interview all these people, get it out there to people to identify with, and just start to build a community from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. I think that's similar to, long-term, like our goals here are to understand similarly like other filmmakers, different roles within the filmmaking process, not only about like the role and what you do, but everybody's unique individual story of how they've come to be what they are within the creative space. Yeah.
And I mean, you guys' podcast is killing it. I loved your intro and all the ones that I've heard so far. So, I mean, I see our podcast doing kind of the same thing in a lot of realms. Just mine's more geared to photography as your guys' is. I think it's geared more like cinematography and stuff like that. But I mean, either way, man, I just think it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Thank you. You're pretty cool yourself.
Well, thank you. And I also, I mean, maybe this is kind of getting a little too far, but I feel like most of the podcasts out there, when it comes to any kind of creative element, it's dry toast, man. It is like either super heavy on the business or like super heavy on like what gear's best. Like there is no like fun kind of, let's actually hear about the artist kind of thing.
Yeah, let's just talk. Let's just chop it up.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation. Like there is none of that. It's super scripted, super heavily like ask question, answer, ask question. It's like, get that out of here, dude. Like nobody wants that anymore.
Yeah,
like get into it.
It's about conversation now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know what we do have though? Is question answer lightning round.
Oh God, here we go.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. Lightning McQueen.
Ciao.
Good job. All right, are you ready for these?
I'm ready, man.
All right. Travis McQueen, what is your all-time favorite movie?
Oh man, Joker.
Really?
Yep,
Nice.
100%.
Recent.
All right. I can dig it. The last movie that you watched?
Oh no. Oh God, I hate saying this. It was Palmer, the Justin Timberlake movie.
Was it good?
It wasn't bad.
Okay, that's a safe response.
Not my genre, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, okay. Favorite director?
Sam Mendes.
Nice.
Okay, so I'll say Sam Mendes or Todd Phillips.
Okay,
Very good.
respectable. Most underrated or slept on cinematographer?
Lawrence Sher.
Okay.
So like that dude, obviously like my favorite movie is Joker. Todd Phillips is up there, and Lawrence Sher has always been in a lot of the Todd Phillips little filmography. I mean, his understanding is so good, man. I mean, obviously, if you're a cinematographer at that level, you know your stuff. But in every interview that I've ever seen him in, he's always been super personable, super funny. Like, he's just like one of the guys. Like, he's just kind of hanging out. And I remember watching a YouTube video of him talking about film lighting. And he was like, I call it contrasting colors, not complementary colors. Like, I don't care. What do I know? And he's just like super like just
That's my kind of guy.
nonchalant about everything. And I'm like, dude, this is my hero right here.
This is the
Love
guy. All right. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Ooh.
What?
So I'm not a big coffee drinker. And I'm not a really big tea drinker, man.
So bourbon?
Bourbon or water?
I was in the neither category for a while.
Really?
Until recently.
So obviously you've been drinking like some boiling hot lava tea today.
Yes.
What's so special about this tea that converted you?
It's not that tea specifically. It's the caffeine component because it takes me a long time to wake up. So it's like anything I can try to wake myself up.
Have you ever heard of Red Bull or?
I want something that's not going to kill me in the long term. So tea is the safer bet.
Microdosing with tea.
Microdosing with tea. Yeah, there we go.
I like it.
All right. This one can be controversial for some. Pineapple on pizza?
No, bro.
Thank you.
No.
Thank
Not
you.
Ever.
All right. Favorite camera?
Anything from the Sony lineup.
You are quite the Sony shooter.
Hey, man. I'm trying to get that sponsorship one day.
Yeah. Now's your chance. Like, plug it.
Sony Alpha Photographer, or I don't know. I mean, what do I say with it? This like Sony Alpha, please sponsor me. He's like, is that what you want? Or
Yes. Sony, get this man a deal.
yeah.
Also, while you're at it, the Sony FS7 is a great camera for shooting video.
What?
If we want another sponsorship, another
Bro,
donation.
it's about the FX series now.
Yeah,
bro.
it is FX.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
FX6, FX9. Yeah,
I've been away from the studio due to COVID, so there's been a lot that has developed apparently in that year.
Get a couple A7S3s in here, bro.
Yeah. You'll be good.
So.
All right. Last but not least, 3 films everyone should see before they die.
Oh man, I thought I could rattle this one off pretty quick. Joker #1, just to see how like society deals with like mental health and just kind of how things devolve like that. That was a really good movie. Gladiator, because it's phenomenal. I mean, Russell Crowe's performance and everything about that one is a super solid movie. And 1917, the Sam Mendes, which Sam Mendes is great. Like I thought Skyfall was up there. You know, Skyfall, the James Bond flick was really good, but 1917, like beautiful.
Excellent choices. The Gladiator, this shot, I feel like every indie filmmaker at the time tried to recreate this, like the hand slow motion.
Oh, over the wheat.
I tried it.
The wheat field.
You tried it?
Work. It didn't work. It did not look good.
There's a lot goes into that. The lighting, the angle. There's a lot of work there.
That's an amazing movie.
That was not a run and gun shot. So many people try to recreate it.
Especially not with Ridley Scott. Like he's kind of a perfectionist. He's no bullshit.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, Travis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
It's been a pleasure. We'll leave links to all of your social media and your website and everything in the show notes.
All 2 of them. Great.
Hey, you know what? It's something, right?
Like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell.
Smash that like button. if that's something you're
Smash that
into.
like button if that's what you're into. All right. For our listeners, we know you have a lot of podcast options, and we appreciate you choosing us. Check us out on Instagram at InFocusPod or online at InFocusPodcast.com. And if you like what you heard today, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, we would love a rating. It would help us out a ton. And until next time,
We'll see you later.
feed your film crew.
Sponsor us, Sony.
And now the after show.
So I want to clarify a comment I made earlier. Just kidding.
No. This one's going up unedited, straight as is.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk. I don't want the part where I'm saying I take freebies to be.
I no longer do free work. Don't at me with free
No,
work.
don't at me.
Bye.